So this chapter is to rough or not to rough, and so last chapter we were talking about some defensive side of finessing, and this time we're moving on to the declaring side of play again, and we're trying to figure out when is a good time for us to draw trumps, when is a bad time to draw trumps, what are things that we need to be worried about or not worried about, and what do we need to do to make this all happen. CPT is Card Play Technique by Victor Mollo and Nico Gardner. So through Discord, we've recently started up this kind of book club discussion group that's surrounding this book. It is this. You can see this is a recent edition. It is a kind of a classic technique. It was a classic book. It was written in 1950s about declaring play and like just kind of the play of the hand. It got recommended to me from a couple of different sources, so I picked it up and started reading it and found that it was kind of a lot of content that I felt would be better served by having multiple people talking about it. So this is the third time we're doing this. So about a week ago we got started, and the plan is to spend about 4 days of discussion on each chapter, mostly oriented through Discord. Then we'll cap it off with a little bit of discussion on stream. We'll do some practice problems about the concepts, and then we'll move forward and do it again with the next chapter. This is going to be, let's see, we're going to have a week's break after this one because of the Thanksgiving holiday, but then we'll be picking it back up with chapter 4, where it'll be on the defensive side of things a week from now. So, like I said, this chapter is all about trumps, and when you should draw your trumps, when you should not draw your trumps, and things that you can do in order to take your trumps separately and in order to score better. We had a good example of this at the end of this hand right there, where like there was a chance for me to score my trumps separately, and I would have been able to take an extra trick, but I didn't set myself up to do that properly. Is there a copy of the book available, or would you need to buy one? I think most people are having to buy their own copies. I have not looked around to see if I could find a free PDF, but you might be able to find one. But it's readily available off of Amazon or from most bookstores. So that's where I've picked mine up. Yeah, you could check the library or buy one. I think like it should be available. The book itself has been published since the 1950s. The version I have has been updated in like the 2013 by one of the daughters of the original authors. So like they updated a couple of things, added a couple editorial notes. But I'm really enjoying the book. It's like this is the same guy who wrote Bridge in the Menagerie series. So if you like that style of humor, if you like the kind of stuff from Victor Mollo, other things, like it's a pretty solid book so far. I like it. I also really like that it looks at things from like the declaring side of view in one chapter, and then looks at how you can defeat those things when you're sitting in the defensive side of things. So it interweaves the two chapters, like the concepts, back and forth really nicely. So one of the very first things that we talk about is kind of like, why should we even be deleting trumps? Like, why do we want to pull the trumps? Why do we want to take care of this? The daughter invited Horton to update it. Thanks, GLGR. I knew it was something like that, but I couldn't remember exactly what had happened there. So this is actually, I thought this was pretty timely. On the Bridge subreddit today, there was a person who's just starting to play, and their question, which they didn't quite phrase this way, but this is what they ended up meaning, was like, why would I want to draw my trumps? Like, why would I want to spin my trumps underneath my other trumps? I should take all of my trumps separately as much as possible, right? Like, is there any case why I wouldn't want to do this? Why does everybody tell me that I should be drawing my trumps? And, you know, it's a good question. Like, and, like, you know that your trumps are really powerful. Like, why shouldn't we want to take all of our trumps separately? And there are definitely situations in which we want to maximize our potential to do that. We're going to be talking about a couple of those today. But what comes up far more often is that we're in a position where opponents could potentially rough our winners. And we want to make sure that we don't give our opponents a chance to turn their losing cards into winning cards. This is kind of the big thing. Like, if they have like small trumps, we want to make sure that those small trumps don't get to win tricks. we especially don't want those small trumps to win tricks off of our cards that should be winning tricks. So this is one of the big reasons why we want to start attacking the trump suit very early on, but there are a lot of reasons why that's not necessarily the right thing to do. And in one of the things that shows up pretty frequently is there are losers in your hand that you have no way to get rid of otherwise. So maybe there's something that you need to do in order to make your hand actually get to the contract properly. So you want to kind of keep those things in mind, which is like, is there a possibility that opponents are able to turn their small trumps into winners? And is there a way for us to turn our losing cards into winners by taking trumps separately? So they then started to talk about some more advanced stuff. Specifically, they're looking at opportunities for you to create Ruffs. So Leia had an unfortunate hand earlier today where both of her, where it was a complete mirror. The suit links in her hand and her partner and the dummy hand were exactly the same. When you have something like that, there's no opportunity for you to create any Ruffs. But if your hands are off by even just one suit, where one suit is longer and one is shorter, then you can potentially use that suit in order to create Ruffs and create shortages in other suits. If there are ways that you can discard things and make unevenness, those are opportunities that you want to be looking for, where you can set yourself up to create a Ruff that doesn't initially exist. Then they started talking about cross Ruffs. So a cross Ruff is where you have a void in one hand and then a void and a different suit in the other hand, and then you can Ruff back and forth by playing the cards from the voids. I think most people who are listening to me are probably pretty familiar with this, but they have a really good rule of thumb here, which is that before you start your cross Ruff, you want to make sure that you take all of your winners and side suits. And the reason for that is that as you're starting your cross Ruff, and you do it a bunch of times, opponents are going to have to start discarding more and more cards. And there's a chance that they could end up discarding all of the cards underneath your winners. And then they're going to be able to use their trumps because they're getting a trump advantage by you spending all your trumps in these cross Ruffs. They could potentially end up with more trumps than you. You want to make sure that you're not giving them you want to make sure that you get to take your winners when they're still available for you to take. If you wait until the end, you might find that your ace of clubs ends up getting ruffed by opponents because they've managed to discard all of theirs. So we're going to be talking about this one in a little bit more detail, which is there's this really cool thing called a dummy reversal, which I had never really heard of before reading this chapter. I'd seen the concept, but I didn't necessarily understand what they were going for. But the basic idea here is when you're looking at, typically when a hand comes down, the closed hand, the declarer's hand, is where you're going to be drawing your trumps from. But there are some situations where if the trumps in the dummy are strong and you have lots of ways to get to the dummy, it might make more sense for you to be able to draw the trumps from the dummy hand, from the shorthand, and then you can end up creating these extra roughing opportunities. We're going to look at a couple of examples of this because the concepts, honestly, I think it's a little confusing, and it's something that I think I would have a really hard time spotting in the wild, but it's something that we should, it's something that's worth talking about. And then the final thing I want to note before we get into some example problems is just that we want to be careful about if opponents give us a chance to ruff, but we might say we're playing in a 4-3 fit. We want to be very wary of shortening our trump suit by roughing opponents' cards when they give us an opportunity. Instead, what we can do is discard cards that are already going to be losers, and we can just take those, we can make those losers work to our advantage. But we don't want to potentially be giving opponents more of an advantage when we're already really short in trumps. We want to be thinking about the worst case scenario and ways that we can avoid it as often as possible. Okay, so I think you can spot it naturally, especially in a 5-4 fits. If you rough twice in hand, you just performed a dummy reversal. Interesting. Guess that's one way to think about it. I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit more because it's one of those things that I'm this concept's very new to me. So it's I'm definitely having a hard time getting my head around it. Okay, so I've set up some example problems here. Yeah, the 5-3 example in the book is, that's interesting that it's not usual. So like we were seeing something that's kind of a little strange. Let me see if I can get this set up. So I've preloaded a couple of deals into BBO. We're gonna get to see all the hands when we do this, but I think it's gonna be helpful. Okay, so sorry, hold on. Yeah, okay, this is it. So what we're doing here is we're ended up in a 7 heart contract. So let me just go ahead and get this set up, and it's going to be 7 hearts declared by South. Okay. And West is going to go ahead and lead a spade, and we have to figure out how we can actually make 13 tricks here. Let's say like West goes ahead and leads the king of spades. Just gonna give everybody a few seconds to think about this, and I'll tell you straight off. Like the idea here is we're going to be trying to implement this concept of a dummy reversal. This is going to be our example number 1, and this is taken from the card play technique book. I've adapted it just a little bit, but our idea here is that we want to try and find a way that we can ruff cards using this suit in South, and then draw trumps using the cards in North. Yeah, BZ's pulling out a really good thing to notice, which is that like the trump suit in the dummy hand is very strong, especially when you pair it with ours. These are all the top cards. Okay, so when this hand comes down and we start taking a look at it, we're like, okay, we've got the hearts. We don't have any spade losers. We don't have any club losers, but we've got 2 diamonds that are potentially an issue. And yeah, it's never going to be perfect, right? The best thing we can do though is maximize our opportunities. And that's what all of this is about, is finding ways that we can recognize the best line, the way that's going to give us our maximum chance. Like maybe we have to hope for a 3-2 split, but the other line was hoping for a finesse. And that 3-2 split is going to be more likely than just a 50-50 guess with a finesse. So like we want to find ways that we can like add those percentage points as much as possible. So if we're taking a look at this hand, like the normal way we think about it is like the way I just outlined it, and we have those 2 diamond losers, and we don't really see a good way of getting rid of them. Yeah, here there aren't other lines. Yeah, you're exactly right. There aren't like any finesses or anything. Everything is really just like set up. But for other ones, like there were some examples I pulled out. I don't know if I actually put one of them in here, but like there's essentially like 3 lines you could take. One has like about a 30% chance, one has a 50% chance, and one has almost a 70% chance. So like being able to recognize this as like an alternative, like having this tool in your arsenal can give you a chance to like get around opportunities to find better lines. So the way this is explained in the book, and I think this is kind of hard to visualize, at least for me, the art of being lucky. Exactly. We got to find those probabilities. Is that we want to imagine that the declaring hand is actually North, and we can imagine South being the dummy. And if we were trying to count our tricks from there, we could be like, yep, we have all of these hearts. We have potentially 4 spade ruffs. We've got this diamond, but we don't have to worry about that because we're going to be able to cover it underneath this club suit. So we can count losers in hand or in the dummy. Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to think about it. Yeah. Figure out which hand you can count your losers from, and like it might seem weird to start counting the losers from the hand with only 3 trumps, but we're going to see in this case that it ends up working out really nicely for us. So our goal on this hand is going to be that we want to win the first trick, and then we're going to try and ruff all of these spades. And we got to ruff these spades with the... and we're going to try and ruff these spades with high cards, right? So this comes down. Now we just go ahead and take our ruff again. Yeah, JLGR, you're nailing it. If we count it from the south hand, we have the 2 diamond losers that there's just no way to get around. But this shortness in the north hand means that we have these. Actually, this is really helpful, JLGR. Like you saying it like that is me like it's starting to make this concept a lot clearer to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and ruffalo here. And now one of the key features that we have to have when we want to do this dummy reversal process is that we have to have lots of entries in order to get back up to the dummy hand, because there's no way for us to keep leading from there if we don't have a way to get back to it. So let's go ahead and get back up to our dummy hand, and then we're just going to keep on roughing spades. Now East has a choice here. They can discard, or they can play one of their ruffs. And they know that we're already roughing and that we can over rough them, so I'm going to say that they're probably going to hold it. This is lay down on any lead except for a spade. You're exactly right. One of the things that is going to be a key feature of this is that we have to make sure that we're able to draw our trumps separately. And if opponents are leading a trump, it makes it really hard for us to draw all of our trumps separately. And we also, because you run out of entry. Do you run out of entries on this hand, or is it... Oh yeah, you're not able to get back. Okay. Great. So now that we've seen that East is out, we know that we're safe to continue roughing, but we want to be careful. We don't want to end up we want to be able to draw all the trumps with these cards. So we need to make sure that we're not getting trapped by these high cards over here, the ace and our king. So we're going to go ahead and ruff high here. You can use 1 trump as entry. Yeah. You have to anyways. Do we have to use a trump as entry? Because we still have 2 more, right? 1 with diamonds, 1 with clubs. Eventually to get back and draw trump. Okay, yes, that makes sense. Yep. Sorry, I wasn't paying enough attention, and like I said, we have to make sure that we're discarding the high cards, otherwise we're gonna end up screwing ourselves. We've got 1 more that we have to discard, that we have to get rid of. So we're gonna pass over in the diamonds. And then let's say that they play this. If we've been keeping track, we can play the 7, but we can also just play the 10 to be safe. Can you turn double dummy when you control 4 hands? Yeah, like this is one of the downsides of like the way that I have this set up, is that we can't quite see yeah, like one of the downsides of the way is that like you can see all the hands here, but there's not. I couldn't think of a better way to do this because the robots won't play the hands for me. But you can see here, then we get to cover everything, and we end up taking all 13. Okay, so I have another example of a dummy reversal, and I don't think most of you will have seen this one. So I'm gonna give a little bit longer. I'm gonna give people about a minute to think about this one. And let me give you, oh, wait, hold on. That was the example. Okay, hold on. Before we do that one, let's do another problem first. Okay, so this is coming from problem 2. So we've managed to get into a 4-spade contract. And I hate these hand diagrams. Sorry, everybody. I'm going to figure out a better way to do this for next time. Since I'll have a week to figure it out. But, so West is coming in. They're leading these clubs, and you can see that we've got bad clubs. West leads a jack. We come in. LaTeX supports suits. That's good to know. I am not writing this in LaTeX, but I can switch to LaTeX, and that would probably make things easier. So let's see. The jack of clubs comes over, then East comes over and overtakes with the ace. Then they play with the king. Then they play the ace, and now they're playing back the queen. And you can see we're empty of clubs in our hand. But our question is, do we ruff here? Yeah, this is IO slides. Yeah, BZ, I think you're hitting the nail on the head here. If we're taking a look at this, we kind of have we have this losing heart that we can't really do anything about, and our spades look solid. We've got this. We've got a 5-3 fit. We've got the top 4, but what we are potentially what we're kind of worried about here is if we take a ruff, we could be shortening ourselves in a way that makes it very hard for us. Like if the spade split 4-1, we could end up having a hard time actually making our contract. You could probably ruff high. Yeah, I think like if they're 4-1, ruffing it all is dangerous. Like I think that if I'm looking at these hands, I don't see like a good way for us not to take that heart loser. So we might as well just like take it right now and avoid the opportunity, as Rasoon is saying, for us to go down on that 4-1 break. And a 4-1 break is not uncommon. Like it's not the most likely outcome, but 4-1 breaks happen all the time. So I think like it's when we have the chance to be safe here, it makes sense for us to try and protect our length. There's nothing that we can really gain here, so we might as well just go ahead and protect ourselves, gain those extra percentage points by discarding a losing card out anyways. One key thing about this example, the loser on loser is only profitable because the 3 club trick clears dummy and clubs, so that you can ruff in the short side on another club. If dummy had 3 diamonds and 4 clubs, this would not work as well. Yeah, that's very true. If the clubs are distributed, like if we have more clubs than these 5, then we could end up, then the play of the hand is going to change a lot. This ends up working out, as Dr. Dahman is pointing out, really nicely for us because we're able to let's see. We're saying that East is leading the club, so okay, Pete's will say something else. If these 2 things are switched, then we're gonna have a much harder time doing this. And let's see. So I think GLGR, yeah, this is kind of summing it up, which is just like at the end of the day, we have a heart loser. There's nowhere for that heart loser to really go. So we might as well discard it right now, and we can get the added advantage of protecting ourselves. We just go ahead and take our loser immediately, and we get to protect the length in our trump suit. And if somebody is split 4-1, then it's going to be important for us to actually have all of those. If West has long clubs and is leading them, you might have to ruff with the jack and dummy. And hope for a split, yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of considerations. Like, obviously, like, we don't know anything about the bidding. Like, we're just, this hand is very synthetic. Like, this example is pretty synthetic, but just generally, this is something you should be aware of, which is that we don't necessarily always have to ruff when given the opportunity. This is something that I don't know. I almost always, like, if I'm given the opportunity, I'm like, yeah, why not ruff? but I notice a lot of times when I'm playing that the robot doesn't always take those roughs when I give it to them. So it's contextually important to be able to know whether, like, it's not always right to rough. And I think it's good to know that those situations exist, and there are reasons why you might want to do it, and one of those good reasons is to protect your trump length. Okay, so this is going to be the example that I was about to show us before. This is the second example of a dummy reversal, and this should be one that people probably haven't seen because I pulled it from a different source. We're in a 7-spade contract, and yeah, sometimes the robots don't rough because they're always going to get the trick. Yes, that has turned out to be the case. I think in most of those situations. Um, but like there have been times when they feel like they're going to get a trick later, and then they just have bad evaluation. We end up like not setting. It's robot things, whatever. Let's take a look at this hand. We're in 7 spades here. Let me just put us in 7 spades. And when we're looking at this hand, and let's see, what did I say? They're leading the Diamond King. That's supposed to be a Diamond. So they're leading the King of Diamonds. We're in 7 spades. And we start evaluating our hand. It looks like we have the guaranteed heart loser. I'm gonna give everybody a little bit of time to think about this. How can we use this dummy reversal concept to try and get rid of the, so that we can go ahead and make our contract here? Okay, I see GLGR is coming in with they've got an idea. Yeah, perfect. If we are looking at this from the dummy side, we have this diamond shorter over here where we can potentially rough all the diamonds. And then the 5-3 club suit means that we have a way to get rid of those 2 heart losers underneath our clubs. And then I think BZ pointed this out last time, the quality of the trumps in the dummy suit is really high, right? Like these can all be the top tricks, so we have no problems drawing trumps from this hand. So that's going to be our plan. We want to rough all of our diamonds, and then we want to draw trumps using the dummy, and we want to discard our heart losers underneath the clubs. So let's see how this works out. So it can be a little bit tough to see. So here's a question for you. What? Yeah, we need 2 entries to dummy. Okay, I think GLGR is starting to see the issue. What trump should we use to actually win this trick? Yeah, we got a rough high here. Dr. Dogman, I don't know if it's always a feature of successful, but in both of them, there's been a long side suit that the declarer drops losers in. I think that, like, in some way, like, you do have to have, like, a long side suit in order that you can have, yeah, you definitely have to have some length differences between the suits. I think that I didn't put one of these examples in here, but like both of these examples we're looking at are Grand Slams. Like if you're looking at like this concept will also apply in you're doing it in a much lower contract. I think there's a good example in the book of like a 2-spade contract. Yeah, BZ's nailed it. We need to make sure that we leave the Jack of Spades open as an entry. I think pretty much everybody has said this, is that we have to rough high. So we're all on the same page here. We're just going to keep roughing. We're going to keep roughing high. Now, one of the things that we need is to be able to get back over. So we're going to use our spade entries here, our spades as entries, in order to get back and continue taking our roughs. So again, East has the decision. They're probably not going to spend their spade. Then it's very critical for us to play our queen here so that we don't block ourselves. Then we ruff back again. Then we go back again, and then we draw the last trump. And then we get to take all of our spades and cash out. Okay. So I thought this was a pretty interesting example. Because it's one of those things where if you just see that come down like that, heart loser looks very, very inescapable. But it turns out that there are ways to get around it. Okay, so let's take a look at another problem. I think this might be the last one. I don't think I have oh, nope, I have one more. Okay, so this is taken from problem 3. And we are in a 4-heart contract, and the opponents, which should not have an apostrophe in there, have started off with a trump lead. And so they've led a heart against our heart suit. You can see we have some nice high quality here. What do we need? Like, what's our plan for this hand? What are we going to be doing at the beginning here? What are our first 4 tricks? Give everybody a few seconds to think about this. Yeah, GL, that's a great point. These trump leads can be very destabilizing. We were seeing that as an example in that first dummy reversal, where the only way to make that dummy reversal not work is if you lead a trump. And in fact, chapter 4, which we're going to be looking at a week from now, is all about when you should be leading trump. So it's looking at this this question from the defender's point of view. So I'm looking forward to that. That should be a good discussion. Okay, Recern's coming in with caching side aces. And try to cross Ruff. I like that plan. So they come down with that king. You see that, I mean, and we can kind of count our hand. We don't have that many tricks. The only way that we're making this contract is if we get to take all of our trumps separately. And the way that we're going to get to take our trumps separately is by setting up a cross Ruff. So we go ahead and win trick 1. And then Recern is saying we should go ahead and take our side aces. Yeah, we definitely want to take the diamonds so that we can set up our Ruff. But then we also want to take the club, because if we don't take the club immediately and we go right into the cross Ruff, we risk giving opponents the opportunity to discard all of their clubs, and then we never get to take our ace of club winner. Recern is saying specifically the ace of clubs first, so may not matter. Why would you lead the ace of clubs first? I agree that that's a good idea. I'm just wondering if you could spell it out for everyone. Dr. Dolman is saying one subtlety is that you want to win the first trick and declare and play the 5 in dumbly. That's interesting. Why does that matter? I had kind of thought that it doesn't matter here what hand you win with, because you're just going to be taking the aces anyways. Let's see. The heart is the only okay. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, you can see everything's touching, so if you have an opportunity to get rid of the one that's not, that's a really good point. You want to take the ace of diamonds second, so you end in your hand and can start roughing the diamond suit. If you ruff the spades first, you might run out of entries. Oh. Yeah, because we had to play the one first. Okay. That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that at all. You can't rough all the diamonds anyways. Yeah, we don't have to rough all of them. We just have to rough enough of them. We want to make sure that we're taking as many of those hearts separately as we can. And if we do, we should be able to come up with, I think, 11 tricks. Not 11. 10. Okay. This is going to be the last example, and then I'm going to finish it here. So, this is going to be another one on bridge base. I've adapted this from an article I found, which is about, well, you might have an idea here about what's happening, but it's taken from an article called When Not to Draw Trump. I want to make sure I threw an example, at least one example of when it's not right to immediately draw trump. So we've, on our hand here, we've gone ahead and opened 2 spades. And yeah, the diamond king is misspelled because of course it is. You might have noticed that there are numerous grammatical, spelling, and other issues in this presentation. It's been a busy week, and this one did not get as much attention as it should have. But I've got a week, so the next one will be a little bit better. So we opened this 2 spades in south, and oh, undo. If I had all this set up correctly, then it would start with south, and north would never have had the opportunity to actually do anything. So we bid 2 spades, we're here. And what did I say? West is leading with the diamond, and they don't even have that. I guess they're leading with the ace. Okay, so at this point, what's our plan? How do we take our tricks? Yeah, the finesse is 50-50. The finesse is like, that's a great first like shot, right? Like we can count 6, 7 tricks off the top, and if the finesse is on side, fantastic, we've got 8. But there's a real danger here, which is that if the finesse isn't on side, we could end up immediately going down. So what can we do instead? It looks like this contract should be 4 spades. 2 spades makes without anything special. I think with the right defense, 2 spades does not make here. So let me see. The danger is, okay, yeah. A roughing finesse. That's an interesting idea. You want to take the roughing finesse where? Okay, I've got 2 votes for roughing finesse, and I kind of like that. I like that play. Using the diamonds. Alright. So, we're not on lead here, actually. I'm trying to think what actually... Let's see. The king holds... Right, so... let's see. I'm trying to think what the actual thing here is. So because I've messed this up. The king is supposed to be in west. Um, and then they make a shift at this point. And I think that the shift that gets made is they make a spade shift. I think I might have had east and west shift. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I've got the two hands backwards. Because it's supposed to be like I think I've had at least one suit backwards because the club suit's in the right place, but I think the diamond suit's in the wrong spot. Yeah, I haven't set this one up quite right. But I think if we move to I think maybe it's supposed to be the club shift next. Damn. I've messed this one all up. I know it shifts. I'm trying to think where it shifts. I think it's a spade shift. You think it's set up okay? Yeah, so I think like after they do this, it's supposed to be a spade shift. And then we have the choice. Do we win with the ace, or do we pass it around so that we win in south? It's kind of a weird one. So I think what we're supposed to do here is to make sure that we win this one. Win in south, exactly. We want to make sure that I think you're nailing it, Dr. Dogman. We want to make sure that we want to make sure we leave ourselves that opportunity later. But we want to, if at all possible, what we need to do here. Later for what? Good point. Good question. But our goal here, I think, should be. Yeah, I did not prepare this problem properly. So I don't have a good way to actually guide us through what we're supposed to do here. So, Dr. Dog is saying maybe later we can take a roughing finesse. I think what ace and diamond queen. The ace of clubs is the second entry to cast a diamond winner. Can win the ace and take the roughing finesse, yeah. So I think the idea here is we want to find a way that we can set ourselves up to in order to take the so that we can rough our last heart. So I'm gonna pass around. We're gonna start opening up the hearts. Let's see. I'm trying to think what we're supposed to do next. Okay. I think I've messed this whole thing up from the very beginning. I think the lead is actually supposed to be the King of Hearts. Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody here is kind of like, I think the reason I'm like getting a little bit confused is because the way I had this set up is that we had a different lead, and on this lead, I think everybody in chat is hitting the right idea, which is that we wanted to go ahead and take the roughing finesse. If we lead off the King of Hearts, which I don't have a good way to reset this hand, but the King of Hearts actually makes a lot more sense as a lead. And then it really changes the way that the rest of the hand goes. Because when you lead the ace of, because I think everybody spotted this really well. Oh yeah, that's a good point. I can just undo a whole bunch all the way to the beginning. Um, but yeah, I think everybody spotted this, is that on the Ace of Diamond lead is that we set ourselves up for a roughing finesse that we're not supposed to be able to get. Um, you can discard one club, you only need one diamonds. Yeah, you don't need the heart ruff. Let's see. This is the last problem in here because I added it like literally 3 minutes before we got started, and that was apparently a bad idea. Let's say they lead the King of Hearts instead. And then this goes around, that holds, that makes them think partner has the ace, they lead a trump. Yeah, we're trying to figure it all out. I guess that's the fun part about doing these together. So now it's set up so that we can try and set up the heart ruff. So at this position, taking the heart ruff looks a lot more reasonable. Like things make sense at this point for us to like want to try and take a heart ruff. So we can just pass this around. And let's see. I think what happens next is that the diamond shift is supposed to happen. Oh no, they're going to lead a spade because they're trying to make sure that we can't take our heart ruff. But they're not going to be able to really stop us. Oh. Yep, undo. Even if spade comes back, you will win in hand and ruff with the ace. Yeah. Yeah, that's the point. You gotta ruff with the ace. Now we're gonna go through and we're gonna ruff. And now we still have, at this point we have 5 tricks left, so we're gonna be able to make our hand. So we take our club, and then we still have 4 spades that we're gonna get to have. Yeah, this is, I think you've both nailed it, which is that we have to be careful here. And the order in which we're taking we're spending our trumps in order to make sure that we're on that we don't block ourselves and not have any entries left. So there's not really anything else to this at this point. We can exit with literally whatever we want, and we just take the 2 club losers, and then we get to cash the rest because they're not going to be able to take it with that 6. But this whole thing fails if we start drawing trumps immediately, because the whole key here is that we have to have that 3rd trump available in dummy in order to actually in order to get rid of our heart loser. Otherwise we're going to lose, and we're going to lose 6 tricks. Okay, so that last example was a little rough, but I think it was a good one because we got to really kind of work through this a couple of different ways. And depending on the lead, you saw that like we either needed to take a roughing finesse in order to set ourselves up, or we have to be able to find a way to actually like set ourselves up to take a ruff that didn't exist initially. A little rough. Yeah, okay. I punned, and I didn't even mean to. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and call it here.